Thank you very much to Chip and Sally for inviting me to do this. I have three things to start with to brief you about the slideshow. The first is, if any of you has been waiting quite some time to see one torture a metaphor, you're in luck with this presentation. The second thing is that I'm going to go really fast. I call it a subliminal slideshow because some of the speakers inspired me with a whole bunch of different thoughts. I had this show timed to the second, so I'm going to go fast and I hope I have a little bit of time at the end. So here's what happens. You won't understand what you see, but tonight it'll come to you, so there's no problem. And finally, and more seriously, there's one slide in here that is a bit of a risk. And I debated long and hard whether to put it in here, but some of you may not want to see it, and I will warn you when it comes, okay? If you have a child, you may want to distract her. So, exciting, wait for that. I'm a policy wonk, and I very rarely leave my desk, or my house for that matter, but sometimes I emerge from my silo and take a look around and see what is happening besides climate change in this country. And what I see is a lot of bubbles, CO2, corruption, ecocide, and all of those. You're familiar with them. Now, when I talk about bubbles, they are when a public policy is based on an implausible view of the future. In other words, it's divorced from reality. And we're all familiar with, and when it bursts, there's usually some kind of calamity. It's a big force when it bursts. We're all familiar with the real estate bubble that happened in 2008, and that's the kind of bubble I'm talking about with all of its repercussions. There are five I want to talk about very quickly, including climate change, but also the investment bubble, social well-being, national security, and democracy, which David will talk about quite a bit more after this. Starting with the climate bubble. It's been a long time since we saw the polar bear and took pity on it for climate change, and you can see that not a lot has happened except for the polar bear. We just haven't taken much action. You saw this slide in an earlier presentation about the hot spots in the country where they've exceeded 2 degrees Celsius. And weather disasters in this continent have cost over the last 3 years $415 billion, and I was surprised to learn that 2/3 of the world total has occurred here in North America. And taxpayers, all of us, you and I, pay 10 times more for disaster relief than we did 3 years ago. So things are accelerating much more rapidly than many of us thought they would. I'm going to skip over this. Part of the good news is that 1 in 5 of us lives in an area that is committed to 100% clean and or renewable energy. And that's a remarkable achievement, largely by states and corporations who have made these 100% commitments. The one problem with counting on states to carry the ball, I want to make the argument that the federal government is absolutely necessary and states can't do it alone. This is a chart that shows emission reductions for all of the states in the country. And when you get over to the far right side and you see that big tower, that's Texas. Its emissions between this 2009 and 2016 have negated all the progress in other states. And what the point I want to make is that when you rely on states to do this, states don't control what other states do. That's why we need a uniform federal policy. And if this bubble bursts, we get hell on earth. The investment bubble, there's been some discussion of this, but you all probably recall the scientific study that said most of the fossil fuels, the proved reserves of fossil fuels in the world have to stay in the ground, 75, 80% or so. And yet, here are the investments being made by the big oil companies. They're pumping money. Well, this is a projection actually of what they're going to do in the next decade. What they've done so far, them and banks, 33 banks have invested $2 trillion since the Paris Agreement was signed. Government subsidies overall worldwide are $5.2 trillion. We don't see many countries backing away from those subsidies. They cause protests from their consumers. Oil and gas has tripled infrastructure spending since 1996, and we got a $1 trillion bet going on this continent. This is all risky stuff, as you've heard earlier. And we're seeing the United States push world growth. We are not the biggest oil producer yet. That's the Middle East, but the blue line is the United States, and the analysts say we're pushing the growth worldwide, largely because President Trump likes it, He has deregulated it, and the production in April broke a record and hit over 12 million barrels of oil. So we are the leader, unfortunately, in this kind of effectively carbon merchant in the world right now. The national security bubble. We've had report after report for many years that climate change is a serious, serious national security threat. In 2004, the Pentagon said it was an immediate risk. 2019, just this month, I need to drink water, you can tell. The U.S. Army War College said that we are precariously unprepared for climate change from the security standpoint. And the Institute for Economics and Peace has just said that this threat to our national security will manifest quite noticeably within the next decade. We will see. And if this bubble bursts, given the arms treaty negated recently with Russia, the proliferation of nuclear weapons that's going on right now, we could have this. I hope that we don't. And the other national security thing that's been in the news lately are refugees, of course. And what we need to understand is we've only seen the beginning of that. There will be millions of them coming up from South America because of climate change. And in the map in the upper left, you see this dry zone in Central America where it's getting more and more difficult to produce food. And when people are starving, I submit that no wall will stop them. They'll find a way. On the left, we see voting results since 2016 in all these states. And on the right, we see the 10 most gerrymandered states in 2019. Roosevelt was wrong when he said this, that we would be responsible for losing the vote. This kind of shenanigan is blocking us in many, many different ways, from ID laws to limited hours of voting booths and so on. I know many, many really decent, I'm an independent, I'm not neither party, but on my advisory board, I've got 3 former EPA administrators under Republican presidents, Ted Roosevelt and many others, and they're really, really good people. Why haven't the Republicans who are moderates tried to take their party back or save it from ever being taken over in the first place? And they're working on it, and we have to help you. We need to lift this lid and get some kind of counter-revolution going in the party, because their positions are good, many of them, and they're really good people. There is no political debate. There should not have been. It's contrived about climate science, whether climate change is real or not. The debate should be about the solutions. And that's where the two parties in philosophy should come in actively. Okay, let's talk about the Green New Deal a little bit. We talk about government policy in the Green New Deal and in climate change policy generally, but sometimes you need to think about the people. There is often a comparison between what we did in World War II and what we should do now on climate change. But we need to look at what the people did as well as the government. As you all recall, and some of you may have experienced, there was a tremendous amount of activity by the American people to support that war, growing their own gardens, war bonds, doing a non-federal support of monetary, and even, if some of you recall, you were supposed to save the grease from your meat in order for the government to make weapons. It was my motivation for having done this for 50 years. She's part of it, but the next part is a slide you may not want to see. So if you're a little queasy about war casualties, I'll give you that much of a hint, turn your head. The reason I put this up here, and I really debated it, is that, is anybody in here a combat veteran? You are. Congratulations. Thank you for it. Stand up, please. Thank you very much. I tear up on this kind of stuff, but I'll try to force my way through it. If you have not been in combat, substantial combat, you have no way of knowing what the people are going through who have been. It lasts your whole life. And these are some signs of it, but we get 6,000 suicides among GIs every year now. And the question I ask myself when I try to judge whether our country is on the right track or not, are we worthy of the lives that have been sacrificed for our country? Is this the country they fought for? And I think probably not right now. Over the course of our history, people who fought to create this country, to sustain it, to defend it, almost 1.5 million. We owe it to the ones who died. We owe it to the ones who are fighting now. We owe it to our kids not to create another war, for them to have to make those sacrifices. Now, we've talked, excuse my voice, I just can't get over this, talk about combat. We talk about not being negative all the time and presenting a positive view to people so they don't get shocked, they don't get tired of crises. And I subscribe to Buckminster Fuller, who said we should be the architects of our future. And the Democrats, I think, need a slogan that is not MAGA, but does the job in showing their vision. The future we want is one that I've used. I'm not going to tell you why. I hold the trademark to it. By the way, I'm willing to give it away. But this, we talked the UN into using this as the slogan for Rio Plus 20, and it went viral. For some reason, people respond to this. And so if any of you wants to use it in your work, you're welcome to do that. We have a choice. We can be this. We can be that. We need to protest, persist, participate, and prevail. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bill Becker.